Thanks.
So for today's Learn at Lunch session, we've prepared a few slides for you, and we'll run through those. It's just giving you a little bit more information on us as a new hospital programme, and it will cover a number of kind of areas. If you just go on to the next slide, please, Dan. So I'll just run through the agenda, and then we'll kind of crack on. So, as I said, for the format, we'll provide a bit of an overview of the new hospital programme and Hospital 2.0 vision.
But make it into it,
We'll
right?
cover
To know
some
what
of our modelling work, and this will be in the sort of shape of an example of one of our specific critical categories, which is facades. Then we'll run through some information on us as a team, and that's market management and what we do and some of our engagement streams. And then following on from this, we'll touch on some areas of sustainability, social value, skills, and then we'll highlight some of the key industry challenges that we're facing, and then some supplier opportunities. And then we'll wrap up with how you can engage with us moving forward. And we'll be happy to take any questions, as Mark said, at that point. If we can't answer any of the questions today, we will come back to you, and also we'll share some of the information that we're presenting today with MMC Ireland, and they can then share that out to yourselves. So, okie doke. Next slide, please, Dan. Great stuff. So, as some of you may know, the new hospital programme has been running for a number of years now, and it was announced by the previous government administration under Boris Johnson at the time in about 2019. Between 2020 and 2024, a number of ongoing consultations and market management took place until we had the most recent government change of administration to the current Labour government in 2024. During that period, we've had a thorough kind of review and a full costings of the programme was undertaken. And that started to establish our clear wave 0, wave 1, 2, and 3 of the programme over the next 15 years. In January 2025, we had a major announcement from the former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, which confirmed that the programme was to go ahead, and wave 1 was completely fully funded, and then the following waves have funding baked into the Treasury moving forward, and that's cross-governmental as well. So as a programme, we appointed our health delivery partner and launched our Hospital 2.0 procurement process in sort of mid to late 2025. This attracted over 24 main works contractors and suppliers, and this was shortlisted down to 16. The procurement closed in late sort of autumn 2025, and was then under evaluation until 2026, about February time. In March this year, we then announced the 10 main works contractors that had secured a place on our alliance framework, which I'll highlight on a following slide in a moment. But we're now well underway with our sort of intense mobilisation process, which has included the likes of upskilling our alliance contractors on our H2O process, on our industrialisation products, and then various systems that they'll need to use throughout the life cycle of the programme. We're also in the middle now of setting up our full alliance and how that operates. So we're looking at draft terms of references, and we actually held the first principal contractors core group last Wednesday. And we've got about another 4 sessions in the diary over the next sort of weeks to really firm up what that alliance looks like moving forward and how we can work as a full programme, not just specifically scheme by scheme. We've already held a number of deep dive product sessions with our main works contractors, and that's to really provide some deeper understanding of the products, the process and the design of what we're looking at as Hospital 2.0. And we've also finalised our collaborative allocation now. And this highlights which of the 10 main work suppliers that secured a place on the framework have been sort of allocated to which schemes. So there's 11 schemes in total. You might have seen some of that in the media over the last sort of few weeks. We are still in that kind of collaborative allocation procurement process. And because that is active, I can't sort of talk too much about that. But we are anticipating that the main works contractors will have signed their contracts, hopefully by the end of sort of July and August. And then we can really kind of like motor on. Next slide, please, Dan. So as I mentioned, we've got 11 schemes in wave one, and we've actually got 10 successful contractors, and you can see them there on the slide. They're not in ranking order there, they're just in alphabetical order. And all of our contractors, those successful and unsuccessful, have received some really detailed feedback on their tenders, and just, to help improve moving forward. And some of them have also been invited to our wider kind of alliance program to, although they won't be necessarily building schemes, they can be part of that alliance process and understanding and share that best practice with us as we move forward. Next slide, please, Dan. Just wanted to include this slide, which just clearly shows those 3 separate waves. It just really highlights the schemes within the programme and shows that wave 1 is between 2025 and 2030, wave 2, 2030 to 35, and wave 3, sort of 2035 to 2039. And then you can see also from the graph there that kind of regional split across England. Next slide, please, Dan. So Hospital 2.0, this is really kind of crucial in making those necessary improvements to address the problems that are facing our ageing NHS hospital estate at the moment. We really want to ensure that we can create a digitally enabled buildings with optimized layouts that prioritize patient care, staff well-being, and enhance that working environment and overall effectiveness to engage people and get them better, quicker, and easier. Hospital 2.0 creates an integrated system to provide standardized and repeatable solutions for scheme development, design, construction, and operation. And also standardizing some of our industrialized products and designs will really help things become repeatable and ultimately, we hope, more efficient. It will also deliver value for money and hospitals that will improve that productivity of healthcare when in operational use. Plus, it's also about really enhancing that clinical and patient experience. Next slide, please, Dan. So this is quite a busy slide, but we just wanted to include it because it really sort of aims to illustrate the workings of the hospital from that standardized blueprint that we've designed. And it shows that operating system, and it shows the feedback that we've taken on board, those lessons learned, and that sharing of that best practice. We've got 4 key principles as well, and they are transforming patient care, hospitals for now and the future, that optimized healthcare structure, and then building efficiently operated and maintained hospitals. So not only are we building those new hospitals, we want to ensure that they're much more easily maintained as well. Often when, we're building new buildings, when that's handed over to the opening sort of trust, that maintenance element isn't always kind of thought about, and we really want to ensure that that's included this time. It really, the Hospital 2.0 process really optimizes those clinical and digital designs and enables those future models of care to be integrated, driving that operational excellence and empowering staff to maximize the use of the facilities as well. And using the industrialized process unlocks some of those economies of scale using those key design principles and also innovation. Next slide, please, Dan. Just wanted to include this slide, as I've previously sort of mentioned. This really highlights that Hospital 2.0 has not been developed in isolation. So it's not been kind of developed by those architects and designers in a room, but it's really involved clinical feedback, supply chain feedback. We've involved industry experts, architects and designers, and really incorporated lessons learned from what's happened in the past across healthcare and wider. Great stuff. Right, Dan, I think it's over to you for the next few slides.
Yep, thanks, Dan. So as an example, I wanted to go through our facades kind of work we've undertaken over the past, well, 3 years or so. So there have been numerous inputs that went into developing our technical specifications. So in support of Hospital 2.0 and that repeatable standardized approach, we've invited suppliers from various typologies of facades into the room, and we brainstorm on what kind of solution we would be appropriate to use within the healthcare environment, within our kind of briefs, and where we can really drive that standardization and therefore value for money for the public sector. Those workshops produced quite a fruitful technical specification, which has got a standardized approach for our facade strategy and a product deployment manual. So basically what it is that we're looking for from the technical aspect and how we envisage that is going to be delivered. We've engage with various societies, with industry bodies, so Society of Facade Engineering, amongst others. We've developed quite a good relationship with them to really better understand what are the industry challenges, what it is that we as a program can influence and support, and how we can really establish a sustainable and resilient supply chain. Particularly that, as you would have seen from the map a few slides ago, some schemes are quite remote or are heavily congested and are running in a parallel, which naturally will pose some challenges. What we're heavily focusing on at the moment, having gathered a lot of intel, is ratifying and verifying our capacity, capability and appetite models. This is really to understand and propose some interventions that will build, like I said, more resilient supply chain, better commercial models, and really highlight NHP as a client of choice. As part of our modeling work, we've played with different designs, with different types of facades. Ultimately, we've settled for 3 types of facades, those being SFS, unitized and precast. And we've played with, as you can see on the slide, with different ratios of each type of facades. Now, scenario 2, unitized heavy, is the most likely scenario that we're going to pursue. Partly because of the ease of implementation and that standardization process, which is then supplemented with our data gathering and market insight information that supports that manufacture and installation challenges, which we feel we might be able to address better through the unitized facade as opposed to any other. This is quite a busy slide, but we do know what our demand is, and as part of the engagements, some of which are happening next week, and definitely beyond that, is discussing with larger suppliers, but also through some webinars and the market sounding questionnaires. How does the industry feel at large about the program? Do they foresee any challenges, any kind of issues that we perhaps have missed or haven't captured yet? So I think the demand is going to be quite a big one. It's certainly something that we lose a little bit sleep over. We've got our peak years, 2030, where our demand really spikes. And I don't think the graph does it justice, but it does spike quite significantly. So what we're trying to understand is how we can smooth that out a little bit. What is the consumption rate of each facade type? And how likely is that spike going to affect the industry, the program, considering that we're not the only fish in the sea? There will be other programs, there are other projects, and the pipeline might already be committed. So what are the potential risks that we need to be aware of? And I think everyone will agree, and that's quite that's been quite a vocal feedback we've received is committing early. It's thinking about raising those purchase orders early, thinking about design freezes and things like that, so that suppliers can allocate their resource appropriately rather than engaging with them too late and then having delays, potential delays or additional costs. Hence why we're doing a lot of engagements. Main works contractors, as Dan had said, have been pretty much onboarded and will be signing their contracts hopefully quite soon. Once that happens and we know which schemes are allocated to which contractors, we can really have those more intimate conversations with the main works contractors and the industry around what are those specific challenges in specific regions, perhaps, or how does the main work contractor envisage to meet their Hospital 2.0 designs? What is their supply chain like? And again, some of the feedback we've captured already is that they are very likely to use the same pool of their tier 2s and tier 3s. So what does that mean for the concurrent schemes? Dan?
Thank you. So what do we do as a market management division and function? We're split into 4 areas. So the first area there, supply intelligence and management. This area really builds on understanding who's in our supply chain. It covers supply chain mapping, risks and opportunities, and also manages the suppliers predominantly at that tier 1 level and strategic level. Area 2, strategic market shaping, that's my area. So we really look at shaping that market. So we look at appetite, capability, capacity, and really having that early engagement to identify any kind of gaps, challenges, opportunities, and gather and inform recommendations and interventions to improve efficiencies, productivity, innovation, sustainability, and social value. And we do that across multiple kind of critical categories and across all of the schemes. Area 3, market engagement, that's focused on sessions like today. And this is where we really want to reach out to the wider supply chain to build on NHP's profile. We haven't built hospitals like this for a generation, and we really want to listen to our supply chain. We need a robust supply chain to help us deliver. Some of our schemes are almost over £1 billion, so we're conscious that there isn't single suppliers that can actually deliver this. We need to ensure that we nurture and harness SMEs, and we build those kind of like robust relationships with the wider supply chain. And also it's about listening to our supply chain and doing things differently and better. Lots of yourselves will be working in other sectors, not just healthcare. So it's bringing all that kind of knowledge together and understanding how we can build and design things in a better way and deliver in a better way. We also look at, improving NHP's profile there, hopefully to become a client of choice. And it's also understanding that market capacity and building those relationships, as I've mentioned. And then the 4th area there is where we really focus on our strategy and planning. So that's predominantly a work stream that looks at scheme demand, program demand, our pipelines, any logistical kind of challenges, and it really helps inform us to ensure that we know where those kind of peaks and spikes or challenges may be, but also then share that information with the wider business and stakeholders in the supply chain so that we can forecast some really credible kind of like demand models to understand what's coming, when and where. Obviously, they're not going to be perfect and things change, but it's really trying to provide that pipeline to our supply chain to give them that encouragement to invest and to work with us. Next slide, please, Dan. So we cover and we're involved in an awful lot of engagements within our area. And we have really wide-reaching engagement, and there's a number of kind of focus areas there. I'll just pick out sort of a few examples, but we've developed relationships with various industry organisations, chambers of commerce, just to support the programme. We run comprehensive supplier strategic relationship programs, and that's not just at tier 1 level, that's at tier 2s and below. They include supplier one-to-ones, events and workshops where we bring our supply chain into those conversations. We've supported on the development of lots of our technical specifications within the programme. And again, that's bringing our supply chain into those conversations to check and challenge our designs and our scopes. Understanding, can we actually build in reality what is on paper? We've sort of created a dedicated supply chain hub, and this will be one of the focuses of our alliance, and that will highlight those risks and opportunities, as well as gathering data for the programme. We are interconnected with various internal and external stakeholders, teams and functions, and we run a number of strategic supplier forums and working groups, and they help drive innovation, efficiency, sustainability, but again, share that best practice. We've got a number of those running, about 6 at the moment, for our core category areas. But actually, as we set up the alliance, as I mentioned earlier, and we build on those working groups, we're looking to see those expand. We're looking to set those up from September onwards. And, we do invite you to be part of those working groups if you wish. We've got some documentation that we'll share at the end of the session where you can actually express interest in being part of those critical kind of working groups or a wider kind of supply chain support function. So as you can see, we're really involved in a lot of different types of engagement that cover an awful lot of areas internally and externally, and it's really building that momentum. We work with other government departments as well, and other sort of large infrastructure programs just to understand how we can support that supply chain. As a program, we want to leave a legacy. We don't want to build a hospital in a particular region and then just leave that kind of region. We want to ensure that we're really supporting and harnessing the local economy, local individuals and skills, but also looking at doing things differently as well. So can we do modularized building? Can we work and import different kind of skills, products and procedures in to a region as well to help improve that kind of delivery. Dan, I think I'm handing back on to you now as well.
Yeah, so a little bit about social value, skills and sustainability. So as you probably gathered, we are quite committed to not just building a hospital, but to consider how it's maintained after the program has concluded. So that does mean we're considering regionalizing demand and trying to find any opportunities to standardize that delivery. And yes, we're focusing on 7 critical products at the moment. But there is an appetite to expand. There are so many different areas that we can tackle, whether it's clinical or non-clinical equipment, things beyond just the actual fabric of the building. So there is a lot that we're doing and trying to capture to ensure that the local populace, local workforce are not left in a pinch, and they've got a more sustainable way of looking after their building and accessing healthcare. It does also mean that we're investing quite a lot of resource into upskilling the regional labor. So there's been an awful lot of work that went into particularly, I would say, doors and partitions category, where we've captured what is the labor shortfall, what is the qualification that we potentially would look for, and then how our standardized technical specification can enable that early upskilling and training, so that the local labor is ready for the program, but also, as Dan mentioned, working collaboratively with other programs is how we can share those technical specification, what are the overlaps, so that local labor has got a more sustainable pipeline, rather than just delivering a hospital and then potentially being out of work. The NHS net zero and sustainability is quite big, as you'd imagine, and we're acutely aware of the CBAM, SCAR, and many other sustainability kind of criteria and metrics. So there's a lot of mapping we're doing and consideration around particularly EU and UK markets. So how much we can buy realistically from the UK market, and how much we have to potentially go to the EU markets. Now, the recent engagement with mainworks contractors did highlight that heavy reliance on the EU markets. But as I've mentioned, the CBAM, additional costs, potential visas that might be required for the labour will prove a challenge, and potentially additional costs. So it is kind of linking back to upskilling local labour force and ensuring that we are pursuing the Buy British kind of initiatives where it's a viable option. Where it isn't is how we can practically deliver products from outside of the UK while trying to meet our sustainability targets. There are BREEAM, another one, really good one, and there is a lot of work that we do to understand the local biodiversity. I think that's a really good one, to ensure that we don't destroy something that's protected. We engage quite proactively with local councils and other bodies to really understand what is that biodiversity in each region, and what are the local net zero targets, so that we can support those as well. As part of all those inputs and all the amazing work we've sort of done so far, we have captured a lot of industry challenges, and that's not necessarily in a negative aspect, because as the slide kind of alludes to, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity to do something different, to learn and support one another. So I'll pick only a few from the slide. One of them is around the appetite. So historically, for example, NHS has only had access to about 8 or 9% of facade market, UK market capacity. Now, given the size of the program over the next 15 years or so, we'll need much more access to that. That doesn't go without its challenges. Competing potentially with other sectors, other programs, but also the shortage within the labour workforce. That might mean we have to do something different. And it isn't just to sell ourselves as a client of choice, but how can we support suppliers from going into administration, for example, which is addressing some of the commercial models, changing those to a more favourable to both parties, as opposed to them being entirely one-sided. Thinking about the payment metrics as well, and methods. Location. So we've got a lot of schemes that are quite remote within the region. Again, those might be less favorable to access. I think we did a survey within the main works contractors recently. So from that aspect, I think they've all declared an interest in all of the schemes. So there isn't any one that is completely unwanted. It is now expanding that survey and understanding within other kind of sectors. So thinking about facades, MEP, and other critical categories, whether or not there are any delivery challenges that we should be aware of. Another one, and I think I'll leave it there, is the offsite and local capability. The program is very much pro offsite manufacture and assembly, as much as that's practical and possible. There are some solutions that are not favorable to those methods of constructions, but we feel as a program that maximizing that offsite assembly will help de-risk some of those labor shortages and allow us to perhaps implement a training regime where that assembly or installation on site doesn't necessarily have to be as complicated. So we're doing a piece of work on doors and partitions, particularly where we're developing almost a manual on how to deliver our solutions. And once we've standardized that to specific types of doors and potentially specific manufacturers, then that installation will prove much more efficient. Right. Engagement, Dan.
Great stuff. So yeah, this is come to the end of the slide deck now. So finally, really, how can you engage with us as a program moving forward? There's a number of ways, and we'll share this information with you following the session. But really, please explore our supply chain resources, sign up to Compete For. That system provides program opportunities and procurement and regular updates of what's happening within the program. We've got a dedicated supply chain mailbox. And if you sign up to that, we can link you in with our smart survey. If you complete our smart survey, which is quite easy to do, that it sort of enables us to understand a little bit more about you as an organization, your offerings, and how we can better sort of work together. And then we do regular sort of monthly news bulletins and information that we share about opportunities within the program, following on from those smart surveys as well. The program's very active on LinkedIn, so any kind of specific updates are always posted on LinkedIn as well. So please follow the New Hospital program on that system also. So I think that is pretty much it for our presentation. So we're happy now to move on to any questions if anyone has any.
Yes, thank you to the two Daniels. Yeah, and with the facility there, if anyone has got a question, if you can just raise your hand. Certainly, thanks very much. That was very informative, folks. From my perspective as well, and what I did like it was about that engagement part and the collaboration and talking about the early engagement with the supply chain. So we've got Mark Kane with a question there. First of all, Mark, we'll just see if you'd like to ask your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And just to echo what you said there to the two Dans as well, it's incredibly impressive and informative presentation, much appreciated. And I think one of the other things that's very striking as well is that this is very obviously not just a building program. When you look at how you're wrapping this up in social values and developing, it's a legacy that you're leaving here. And this is a real stimulant to the UK economy. It's just incredibly impressive, the 360-degree viewpoint you're taking on this. It's great to see it being elevated and raised to the level it should be. Just a couple of maybe more rudimentary questions, a couple of the things that we would often see when we engage with public sector contracts, UK, Ireland and Europe. We fully understand it's taxpayers' money. So in terms of the quality and capability and skills of the companies and the supply chain you're contracting, you have to be very guarded in that regards. And quite often public contracting authorities will say, kind of simply, if you've done it before, you're proving you can do it again. And we get that from a risk management perspective, very prudent with, as I said, taxpayers' money. How and what kind of criterion and procurement approaches will you apply on this program, though, that will open up the NHP to companies that can deliver really strong offsite manufacturing capabilities and some significant capacity, but maybe not necessarily having delivered it in complex environments like acute hospitals? Is there going to be a shift and a change in that risk profile? And the second question, which is an extension, and it was tipped on by one of yourselves, I think it was, down towards the end, in relation to payment terms and advance payments. Again, offsite manufacturing in a private capacity, there's always some form of an advance payment for work that's going to be done offsite before it lands in the client site. Welcome your thoughts on that from a procurement perspective also. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dan, do you want me to take the first one? Are you okay to follow up with the second one?
Yeah.
So thanks, Mark. Really appreciate that. And exactly what you just said there. We're looking at a transformation infrastructure program. It's not just building buildings. We really want to improve people's lives. And it's also, it's having that standardization whenever you walk into a hospital. Often it's in very stressful kind of situations.
Sure.
We're trying to standardize that look and that view and that feel so that people have that comfort and know that, from our kind of design, maternity's here, pediatrics is here, A&E is here, and you feel a little bit more comfortable within those kind of high stress situations. So absolutely. Addressing your question, we can hopefully provide some specifics around how you can work with us and some of those kind of quality capabilities. But yes, we are open to understanding and listening to supply chain who haven't worked in healthcare sector before. Yes, if you have that experience, that's fantastic. But I actually use an analogy when I was speaking to Anna and Mark at the beginning of this session, actually before everyone joined. We've done a bit of a nations tour over the last couple of months. So myself and a couple of other senior leaders have been out to sort of Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. And the England, just to understand what organisations are out there, if they build anything similar to what we need. So, for example, we actually spoke with a company who build bathroom pods for cruise ships. They work, within a totally different sector. Yes, we have specific specifications for some of our kind of like bathroom pods, our en-suites and our requirements. However, fundamentally, we are requiring the same sort of product. We are requiring X amount of bathroom pods for all of our kind of schemes. So we've tried to sort of work with that organisation to actually say, come speak to us, engage with us, have a look at our designs, have a look at how we could work together, because this is an opportunity for you to sort of diversify your business, work in a different sector, but also support us on our needs, because fundamentally the kind of construction is the same. You need a sanitary ware, you need a shower, you need a sink. It's just configured in a different way. But actually, if you're building them at a specific standard for a cruise ship, for example, that could be lifted and shifted into a building. So we are open and we are listening to organisations that have that experience and expertise in building similar kind of items in other kind of buildings, and then seeing if we can put that into a hospital environment. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of like challenging metrics that we have with that infection control. So that is a specific kind of challenge that we have. But we are working with, other government organisations, sort of Department for Education, so schools, MOJ, etc., just to understand what the supply chain have built for them and how we can understand and kind of utilise that experience. So yes, the answer is we will want to engage with organisations that haven't built in healthcare and just understand a little bit more about yourselves. And if, for example, you have any particular case studies which really show what you've done, how you've done, and what that achieved with those kind of tangible results, please share those with us, because we've got open ears and we're really interested to hear. So there is a shift change in that kind of like profile.
Yeah, very heartening. Thank you, Dan.
If I could, Dan, I'll just add to that, because we've as a working example and quite recent was partitions. There are different
Mhm.
ways of delivering partitions. You can have your stud, a plasterboard, whether it's timber or aluminium, but our technical specification allows for other methods. So thinking about the modularized approaches, IKEA style of partitions. Now, they may not necessarily be as popular within healthcare, but there's definitely some room for that solution. So having spoken with the procurement and some of the technical guys previously, it could be a case of proving a concept on a smaller scheme. Building a prototype, and we've done prototyping previously on some of the products. So there is an opportunity to expand to to areas that don't necessarily have experience within healthcare, but it's starting probably smaller, just to prove those concepts first.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Prudent.
And in terms of your payments kind of mechanism question, it is kind of industry specific. So we found that facades industry tends to have very short longevity, partly because of the cash flow. That doesn't necessarily mean it's only that sector. It is others. So we've captured a lot of feedback and how that is managed. And yeah, I completely appreciate your comment about paying upfront, especially if you're doing offsite manufacturing or buying some raw material in bulk. So there's an awful lot of consideration around vesting, and what is that percentage? Upfront payment versus final payment. So we're quite keen to understand what is the comfortable percentage for both sides.
Yes.
I've got a lot of experience in medical equipment, so thinking about like CT scanners, the high ticket items, and manufacturers tend to want about 70-75% upfront payment before it's kind of, before it's delivered, which might be a little bit difficult to digest for a public sector where it's a little bit more conservative, and vesting, it does happen, but there's still a reservation around that. So I'm very keen to have maybe a separate conversations around what people's views are on payment terms and these kind of commercial models, so those can be fed back to the procurement teams and we can review them as a cohort to make something a bit more viable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your model there of the Siemens, Toshiba, Philips, the big diagnostic, they
Canon.
typically get 70-75%, and we look on as offsite manufacturers with envy because there's no principles within procurement to allow it. But delighted through Anna and MMC Ireland to continue the conversation around things like advanced payment guarantees, bank guarantees, and how we provide financial instruments and securities to private clients. And I'm sure there's an awful lot of models there that are very translatable, Dan, back to your good selves.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks a million, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for the question. Any other questions there from within the group?
What I would say, if you do think of any questions after the session as well, please feel free to contact us, and also contact our supplier mailbox. We will try and address anything that you want to understand a little more on.
Yeah, I think Mark has one more there.
Yeah.
If that's okay, I've never met such a quiet group of guys from Ireland now before. All right, it's very not like them. But no, there's one other very, I suppose, seminal point that was made by the two Dans in relation to the standardized, I think you call it standardized blueprints earlier on. Is that content and documentation available to be shared with ourselves so we understanding of what good looks like from a design perspective and a cost perspective, or is it only something that's you've engaged with the alliance partners with to date on?
So at the moment we've got 7 industrialized products, which are those kind of standardized products. We are looking at some more. Though the engagement and the sort of feedback we've had is predominantly from those kind of tier 2 suppliers rather than the tier 1s, because they're the suppliers who are actually building them. So we've had a lot of feedback from them. Now, if and when you register with us,
Yes.
what we can do, depending, obviously, it just depends on what kind of capacity that is. So if you do join a working group, if you're able to kind of go through with that, what we often need to do is just go through a few kind of security processes like setting up NDAs or conflicts of interest. But we do have a system called ACONX where we can share specific kind of design details, and we have done that with a number of other suppliers, which just provides that high
Perfect.
level kind of scale kind of drawings, etc., and then the feedback that goes within that. What I will say is we have a continuous feedback loop for our designs. So I sit on a number of triage sessions, and we probably do a few thousand a week. And that is internal, external kind of stakeholders and supply chain feeding back on anything that may work, may not work, or there's been challenges in. So if we can share that information with yourselves via that ACONX system, we will do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just, I suppose, one last opportunity for any other questions. And if not, thank you to the two Daniels for today, and for all our members that have engaged with us as well. Very exciting, I said, especially from the collaboration, and given the length of the program, just when you were speaking there, Mark, going on to 2046, if there is that fluid engagement and ideas, I suppose that does create that learning environment. And I always say, out of these processes, you get out of it what you put in. So it takes that engagement. You have to pull, I suppose, the successes out of it. But if there is that openness for sharing, I suppose the opportunities are for us all. And to Daniel Artworski was talking there about the sustainability. I think that's sharing within the groups as well, because there'll be a lot of learnings that we can take back home. So not only within healthcare, whether it's education, because this is the way the industry is moving forward. So even with the NHS program, the new hospital program for us, there will be additional learnings to help bring betterments into our company for other sectors as well. So appreciate that as well, folks. Thank you.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. We have got 3 waves at the moment to take us through to almost sort of 2040, but we're looking to continue to evolve and improve. And what we're hoping that by the end of this sort of 15-year program, this will be business as usual. This will be how we build hospitals. So that will continue on. And when you think about things, we've got 204 trusts. Obviously, within these waves, there's about maybe 46 sort of schemes. There's a lot of trusts there that may need to be building or replacing or upgrading their hospitals over the coming sort of generation. So it will be that continued work.
Yes, and you also relayed there, like, you're also talking to the Department of Education, the MOJ. So look, there will be cross learnings across other sectors. So there'll be benefits across various groups, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked to nuclear as well, rail, transport. So we're linked in with all of those kind of government groups and trying to understand how we can work better together. It's not about us just securing a supply chain to deliver our program. We want to ensure all of those kind of government major infrastructure programs are delivered, and we support each other and we support the supply chain to do that.
Absolutely. Well, okay. Well, if there's no further questions from me, thank you very much, folks, for your time and for the presentation. It was excellent, and for the ongoing engagement with the MMC and the new hospital program. Thank you, folks. Thank you.